From the halls of Austin to the fights in D.C. that hit us at home, this is Politics with the Big Dogs.
Hello, hello, hello. This is Anthony Holm, host of Politics with the Big Dogs, and we have a great show for you today. We're going to have, in just a few minutes, we're going to speak with Land Commissioner Dawn Buckingham, a statewide elected official. She's a commissioner of land for Texas, one of the, I believe, the largest landholder in America, the state of Texas. Bunch of natural gas, a bunch of other things that we're going to learn about here today. We're also going to take some time and do a deep dive into this U.S. Senate race. Senator Cornyn, Attorney General Ken Paxton, and Congressman Hunt have been trading barbs and data sets back and forth. So let's have a look and see what we think is real, what is happening, who we can rely on. Is the truth somewhere in the middle? So again, Anthony Holm, host of Politics with the Big Dogs. Make sure you're signed up for our newsletter, politicswithbigdogs.com. Also, sign a petition. Let's ban taxpayer-funded lobbying. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Facebook, Truth Social. We're on YouTube, politicswithbigdogs.com. We're on Apple iTunes as a podcast as well, and across the board. Follow us, politicswithbigdogs.com. And now let's bring in Land Commissioner Dawn Buckingham. Thank you so much for joining us, Commissioner.
Anthony, it is great to be on with you, and a big howdy to all your listeners.
Well, thank you. Look, I'm a little embarrassed, but I've just got to own it. Kind of like the Railroad Commission, the Land Commission. I don't know a lot about it, what it does. So today, folks, we're going to talk a little bit about, or maybe a good bit about what the Land Commission does, what you want to do moving forward with the commission, what you see on the horizon for conservatives in Texas, what you're trying to accomplish. The two or three things that I'm familiar with, which are, I'm sure, minuscule relative to the reach, are the Alamo, the rapid response after hurricanes, and then what I believe is an island down in the valley and some of the border protection stuff. So at least let's get those three, but please fill us in on the rest of it.
Absolutely. And just in a little historical perspective, the General Land Office was formed in 1836, almost immediately after we won our independence from Mexico. So we actually predate the governor by about 9 years, which is kind of fun. And we're the last remaining entity of the Republic of Texas. And when we were founded as the keepers of maps, the guardians of Texas history, and the steward to our state lands. Texas is incredibly unique as we entered the Union because we entered as a sovereign nation with those benefits, not a territory. All the other states love it when I call them former territories, but that meant we retained our unowned land, which today is 13 million acres. It makes the agency the largest mineral owner in the state, responsible for the majority of oil and gas production, and that funds education to the tune of $6 billion in my 3 years in office. So that is really exciting. It also gives us really good standing when we have to defend the oil and gas industry. It was us. We were the plaintiff filing when we got rid of Biden's liquefied natural gas export ban. We're the plaintiff for the state whenever the endangered species stuff gets out of control and the Democrats are trying to swing at oil and gas. So that's just a lot of fun. It also puts us in a position to look out and be transformational in our leadership, thinking about what does Texas need in 50 and 100 years. We not only have a stewardship responsibility to our lands, but we have the need for exceptional leadership and look out and we say, wow, things like produced water. One of the biggest challenges for the state moving forward is going to be our water supply. And so we're working really hard in the Produced Water Consortium to get that produced water to agricultural levels for the same price as reinjection so that we can turn West Texas into a garden oasis. But besides that, we also do everything coast, beach renourishment, habitat restoration. We're embarking on the largest infrastructure project that the Army Corps of Engineers has ever done. It's called the Coastal Spine. It's a resiliency system of barriers starting in Louisiana. Eventually it'll get all the way to Mexico, dunes, levees, big storm gates so that we can mitigate the impact of hurricanes when they hit our precious coast. And then we do the disaster recovery that you mentioned. We're actually kind of the late phase. We roll in at about 2 years after. By the time the federal money comes down, everybody's super impressed that they haven't been in their house for 2 years. And we're like, we're here with our red cape to save you. But yeah, so we're currently administering $14 billion in disaster recovery, $1 billion in flood mitigation projects all over the state, all kinds of things in that department. We also run a whole division of veterans benefits. So for our veterans, we have 10 veteran nursing homes across the state, 5 veteran cemeteries, and then we also have a mortgage lending program. We have put over 6,000 veteran families in the homes of their choices, lent almost $1.5 billion to our veterans to get them into the home of their choice. So it's wonderful to be able to serve our veterans every day as they served us. And then, as you mentioned, we have the Alamo. And so I'll run through that project when you're ready to talk about it. But we are so excited because what we're really doing at the Alamo is making a visit to the Alamo worthy of the significance of the events, honestly, for the first time since the battle. So it's a great job. I love doing what I do. It appeals to my ADD, as you can imagine, because one second we're talking about, healthcare, and the next second we're talking about beaches, and the next second we're talking about the Alamo and history, and we also run the oldest archive in the state of maps. So we just have a lot of fun things to do and see and move around the state.
Wow, that is incredible. And listeners, I should have given some background as well. So Commissioner Dawn Buckingham, formerly a state senator, formerly also a school board member. I've known her for some years, conservative activist, strong conservative policy leader, who also, I think, merits a red cape, might get you a Superwoman outfit, and we just acknowledged some ADD. So one of the many things I've learned in just these last few minutes, the last remaining remnant of the Republic of Texas is the office. This is incredible. That's really cool. When we were a sovereign nation.
It's super cool. And it's even more impactful to me. I'm from a 9th generation Texas family. We were original settlers. We were, ironically, one of the very first cases the land office settled was against my family. They did not honor our Spanish. Seriously, this little thing called the Austin Colony, we were there first. They didn't acknowledge our Spanish land grant. They acknowledged the Mexican land grant. And so, yeah, that was a conflict from long ago. And we were the British consulate to the Republic of Texas. So in my family, we take this Republic of Texas thing pretty seriously.
I think that's really, really cool and special. And yes, we want to get to the Alamo because that is a symbol of Texas. But let's go through some of these other things first. The largest oil and gas producer. That's incredible. I mean, that is obviously many of the listeners here who have joined us. We know that it's about a third of the Texas economy, about 22 to 25% of the state's budget, oil and gas. And you all hold, 13 million plus acres? Is that what I heard?
We do.
And the largest oil and gas producer in Texas. That's incredible. Okay. And then, all the listeners, as you know, I'm a trial lawyer, Republican, conservative activist. So you said a couple things that in particular were interesting to me, that you guys get to be the plaintiffs to fight against craziness by Kamala and Biden in the Endangered Species Act, ending the lawfare of the activist liberals who are trying to strip us of our individual right to access our own land, right? Some spotted, one-eyed salamander is going to stop all types of growth. Tell us more about that.
Well, it's an amazing position. I tease the Attorney General. He gets all the credit, but without us having standing, he wouldn't have a plaintiff to
That's
go
right.
after the federal
that's exactly right.
And so we tease back and forth about it a little bit, but sometimes we even acquire property to better our standing in a lawsuit. A lot of people in Central Texas are familiar with the Golden Cheek Warbler fight. We are leading that. We've got it almost delisted. So we actually purchased some property just north of San Antonio, not under my tenure, under previous ones. But, it's just been a mission of our agency. Everything Texas, we defend. Honestly, we have our hands. I joke that we're the agency who rolls up our sleeves every day and touches your life in a positive way. And you didn't even know we existed. So that's why I love talking to everybody. It also makes you realize why the Democrats come so hard at this seat. I was outspent 5-1 by my Democrat opponent in the general election.
Whoa. Stop. I can't think of another elected official in Texas who was outspent by a Democrat, period. And you're telling me you were outspent 5x to 1?
Yes.
How is that possible?
It's really hard to raise money for this position because everybody's like, I don't know what the General Land Office is. I don't know who you are, and I don't think I care. So in the Senate, I was always one of the top fundraisers, so I work really hard at it. And we definitely scrape, but we basically couch surfed across the entire state in our campaign. We pinched every penny to get our word out. It was exciting, though, that even being outspent 5-1, we did win by the largest margin in the state last time.
Really?
Yes, I came third in overall votes, that highest margin. Now, granted, mostly that is because I did not have a Libertarian and he did have a Green Party. But what really is important for the activists to know, and the reason why this job is so important and why the Democrats come at it so hard, is the state has an out in every contract we have. If you get an activist Democrat in this role, they could completely shut down oil and gas basically with the snap of the fingers.
Oh, because you guys are the landholders.
And our history because of our role at the Alamo, and our border, which I haven't even mentioned that yet.
Yeah, we're going to get there.
Really cool stuff there too. So we really need people to pay attention and be like, ooh, we do care about the General Land Office, and we do know who to vote for, and hopefully they can, send us some help too.
This is insane. I mean, the governor has, I don't know, 110 million cash on hand. He's blown like 70 million, and you down ballot, not that far, más o menos, the sixth slot are outspent 5x to 1. That's a real failing on our donor base. And so look, I've learned like 4 or 5 things already. Okay, let's save the Alamo. Folks, if you just tuned in, this is Anthony Holm, Politics with the Big Dogs, and we're talking to Land Commissioner Dawn Buckingham. And let's go to vets benefits, because my father is living in a home that you guys probably financed. He certainly has a VA-associated mortgage. We have some vets action. We've got the border. We've got coastal erosion that are all pretty interesting to me. So dealer's choice. What would you like, Commissioner?
Well, let's talk about our vets first, because we are on the cusp of Valentine's Day. And one of the ways that we love on our vets in our homes is we do card drives. So we're in full swing on our Valentine's for Veterans. You can just go to the General Land Office website. Our 10 nursing home addresses are on there, and you can just send a little Valentine to one of our vets. And we love it because we really get thousands all across, from actually all over the world. It's kind of fun, and they love fun messages. But we really think it's important for our veterans they need special care in the last years of their life. And that is really a special calling if you spent any time in nursing homes. Our homes are beautiful. Our staff are actually mostly vets themselves. We do a lot of special things for post-traumatic stress. We have a really special way of taking care of them. And so it's lovely. In fact, last weekend I was at our home in Houston, and we had a little competition between Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. And we shot Nerf guns, and we threw basketballs, and we did a little football toss. And I won't tell you who won because everybody's a winner, but we had a really good time, and I embarrassed myself thoroughly and how terrible my little basketball shot is. But we had a lot of fun. So we love providing that extra care. And then we love the fact that for their eternal rest, we have a respectful and beautiful place in the state for them to have that eternal rest. And one of the other things that we do that's really special, and we couldn't do it without all the community organizations, is pretty frequently, about 20, 30 times a year, we'll have a veteran who's going to be buried in one of our cemeteries, but for whatever reason, we can't find any next of kin or friends. And so we call those unaccompanied burials. We send out an alert, and we'll usually have hundreds of people come and celebrate this veteran's life, so that they're sure that they go to their final rest in the presence of company and people who appreciate them. And it's beautiful to be able to see that. In fact, last year in Abilene, the family found out. We found family last minute, and they came rushing into the ceremony thinking it was going to be deserted and there was not going to be anyone there. There were 200 people there, and the family was brought to tears.
I'm about to cry.
I know.
I am truly about to cry.
It's just neat. It's just really neat how we just get to do that and serve our veterans.
And listeners, this is radio, so I'm going to say it. Commissioner Buckingham just wiped her eyes, and I'm holding back tears myself. Look, I'd like to know when this is going to happen, and I will very tactfully send a crew out there to film it, because it's too moving, and we'll put it up, and we'll encourage people. What a beautiful I've never even thought of that, but what a beautiful program. And the fact that hundreds of other vets will show up for somebody who was going to go, be buried without. The other thing I'm going to do is certainly my 2 daughters will send Valentines, but I'm going to encourage, and I think their school, St. Stephen's Episcopal in Wimberley, will take the challenge, and I'll bet you 100 cards come out of that. I've never heard of either one of these programs. I am all in. So, look, this is exactly why we're so excited to have you on the show and teaching us. Okay, wow. I'm having a little bit of trouble continuing. That's really powerful.
I'm writing myself notes so I get you all this information.
Oh, I am as well. So I'll follow up for sure. And much of it's on the website. So, all right. I'm struggling there. So coastal erosion or the Alamo.
Well,
Dun, da, da, da.
let's save the best for last because
Okay.
the Alamo's super fun. But coastal erosion, we're actually embarking on the largest beach renourishment project that Texas has ever seen. We also help everyone restore the beaches after hurricanes and erosive storms. But it's exciting. We're doing artificial reefing. We're creating fish habitat. We're really engaged in keeping our bay system healthy. You know, Texas has honestly some of the best fishing around the world. In fact, I find it hilarious. I think our coast is pretty underappreciated. I'll just put it that way. I go all these places to fish and then I come back and I'm like, honestly, snapper fishing, it's one of the best things. And when the reds are running, that's super fun. And so,
Yes.
the flounder are great. So it's really nice to be able to help out our coastal residents and just get it recognized as one of the most important parts of the state. And then also just in the country, how special our coast really is.
How big is your staff? How big is your agency? And does it have offices? Like, for example, I recently learned that the Comptroller of Texas has offices in 4 different states. I'm going from memory, but yes, because there's so much activity. So tell us about I kind of skipped that. Tell us about the agency and who's there and where are you?
Right. So we have about 800 employees, and then we do all the oil spill cleanup as well. So we have six areas along the coast that are the various divisions of our oil spill team. And so we have an office in each of those. And then we have an office out in Alpine, Texas, just because we have so much acreage out in West Texas. So we're scattered around, and then we have a big, our disaster recovery team. I try and encourage them to not have too many offices because I don't want them sitting there all by themselves. I want them out in the community,
Sure.
Serving the people they're supposed to serve and doing it well, which is our whole motto and our whole plan. Everyone's like, what's your goal? I'm like, it's simple. You just serve who you're supposed to serve. You stay in your rails, you charge forth unapologetically, and you just serve others. So I love this job.
I like it. And I'm just going to jump in because you, by chance, happen to – Alpine, Texas is pretty much my favorite place. I would love to live there. My wife won't do it, but we actually got engaged there. I've been going to Alpine forever and a day. So had I known, I probably would have tried for a job some time ago with you. Okay.
That's something else we should talk about just super quick. So
Sure.
Rare earth minerals are kind of a thing right now, right? We all saw China starting to play funny games with them this summer. And so the General Land Office actually owns the only and fullest set of rare earth minerals not under China's control in the world. The Trump administration just invested $1.5 billion in USA Rare Earth, who is our leasee on our property, so that we can get these rare earth minerals processed. So not only energy independence and food independence from our agricultural leases, but we're going to play a key role in what I call elemental independence, which are all these rare earth minerals that more than 20 on your phone, more than jets can't fly without them. They're really, really important, and we're leading the way on that too.
That's incredible. And folks, you've all heard about the rare earth minerals and what's happening. I didn't know that the commission had anything to do with them, frankly. Again, I apologize for my ignorance. But here's what's going on, as we all know. Let me just summarize it for a moment. China is flexing. They have I'm going to grab a number. I think it's north of 70%. It might even be closer to 80 or 90% of all the rare earth minerals, and also the mining of them. So what's it mean? These are the items that allow our cars to drive, our refrigerators to cool, certain types of magnets. And what they have done is they didn't like our tariffs. They didn't like some of the restrictions that we were putting on our national security microchips. And they said, well, then we're going to triple the cost of the tariff, and we're not going to let these minerals out. They're going to try to starve us effectively of our services. And I got to give President Trump what I now believe he saw instantly, was he started grabbing the oil, right? He went into Venezuela, he got operational control of the oil, started freezing people out because China is oil dependent on Iran, dependent on Venezuela, really bad actors. And I think in large part to flex back over the rare earth minerals. This is absolutely the nuclear weapons fight of this era, in my opinion. And it's shocking. It's shocking to me that we, as a nation, allowed China to control them all. They have a lot in their own jurisdiction, but then they wisely, over the last 20 years, went out and bought and got operational control where the rare earth minerals were elsewhere. So I didn't understand that Texas had a huge deposit of them. I do remember the Trump administration putting in 1.5 billion into that entity, and it gave me a little pause. I'm not a big advocate traditionally of government tax dollars going to fund corporate action, but this is making more and more sense. Can you tell us more about it?
Well, so the investment is mostly kind of a low interest rate loan. So they're going to get their money back. So it'll be a good investment for the taxpayers. But more importantly, the processing is incredibly difficult. It creates a Superfund site almost everywhere it's done. That's been a little bit of the holdup of working on these minerals or getting the domestic production up. But I think we've got that part figured out. Which also is exciting is you can actually go now to other Superfund sites because these minerals tend to be in with uranium, gold, things like that as well. So a lot of the tailings that are Superfund sites elsewhere have these rare earth minerals in them. So we're kind of doing some recycling on that front. But it's the perfect example of why you don't get rid of your surface and your minerals. This piece of property, actually not too long ago, the General Land Office was trying to sell it and couldn't give it away, basically. And so now it's invaluable. So that's what I keep telling people. You want to hold on to your surface. You want to hold on to your mineral rights. You want to make strategic plays. If you look, actually, one of the top traded stocks, they had an article on it about a year ago, is a defunct 1800s railroad from Texas that someone bought in the 1800s. Now they do surface plays on it, leasing for various things, groundwater, whatever. And it's the highest producing stock. So I'm like, there's a reason to own surface, everybody. So let's not be selling all our property.
Yeah, that notion that we've all heard, God ain't making more land, right? Hold it, and it just shows it.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. Years might be the most far-reaching agency that I'm familiar with as I become more and more familiar. And the border. You got a huge play on the border. Tell us about it.
We do. Just for starters, we have hundreds of thousands of acres on the border. We've, of course, been in cooperation with the Texas Military Department and DPS and Border Patrol and all of that, all of their surveillance towers, everything we can do to help on state land. But then, and you're probably picking up on the fact that I'm a full steam ahead kind of girl and fully capable of starting an international incident my first couple weeks of office. So we kind of
per the red tape.
Yeah,
yes.
Maybe. And so first couple weeks in office, I get a letter from the Department of Public Safety, and they say, "Hey, Dawn, we have these islands in the Rio Grande. They haven't been claimed by either country. We think that they're Texas. The complexity of them not being claimed by either country is just that they're literally safe havens because no law enforcement or military from Texas or Mexico can step foot on them. So they were cartel safe havens. The biggest one was 170 acres, not small. What I can tell everyone we found on them are structures, IEDs. I'll let your mind go from there. That's what I can tell you we found.
Wow.
Guns, drugs, abused women and children like you'd expect to find. So the ask had actually been in for many years. So I teased, once I get something done, ask a busy lady to do it. And so actually I have a better tease than that, but my team told me to stop saying it on the radio. And so it took me 48 hours. I said, we map where the center of the river is. Let's be clear on that. By our treaty with Mexico in 1836, anything north of the center of the river is Texas. So we did kind of 3 out of the gate. We've done 2 more. We're looking at several others. But then the military department and DPS and Border Patrol were able to come in, clear them, get rid of everything, get rid of the structures, get rid of the caches of weapons and drugs and money, rescue the abused women and children, put up the wire, and get complete operational control of those parts of the border. And I did say let's measure twice, though, before we cut and determine this, so we're not starting an international incident with Mexico, which they did try to kick up some dust, but we told them they should learn how to read a map.
Well, sure. And look, rivers move, right? They change and they shift. But let's take a breath and make sure everybody understands. And first, if you're just joining us, Anthony Holm, host of Politics with the Big Dogs. We're here with Land Commissioner Dawn Buckingham, and we're talking about something that was new to me until a few years ago, I think when you came in, actually, and it made news. And it was this. Throughout the Rio Grande, the river between Texas and Mexico, there are what are effectively islands, chunks of land, and nobody knew who they belonged to. No, neither nation had claimed it, Mexico or the U.S., and what was, as a result, no law enforcement or otherwise felt empowered to go on there. They were restricted. So if you were a drug runner or you were, a terrorist coming across, you had a safe haven in the middle of the river. If they were on you, the Mexican police or federales would stop in the water, and the U.S. would stop on our side, and these guys would camp out. And they were building structures, and they clearly had bombs, and they clearly had abused women and children and drugs, and they were just hanging out in the middle of the Rio Grande until somebody left and they can make a move one direction, which is almost always north. Fair representation?
Fair representation.
Okay. The other thing I think I heard you say very graciously and then roll on by, but I'm going to grab a hold of it, was the ask had been in for years. So I want to repeat back what I think I heard. DPS, Department of Public Safety, Texas DPS, said, hey, we have this problem, effectively. We have these islands in the middle of the river that are safe havens, and we can't go there because no one at the Land Commission, whose duty it is to decide where Texas land is and isn't, certainly the coastal, has said that is Texas land. Is that true? Is that a fair representation?
That's fair.
Okay.
They gave me an award for it. I was like, shoot, give me something hard to do, no offense.
So that request having been in for years means that the fellow that was in before you did not honor the request and answer it in one way or the other. You're being very gracious, but I'm going to call it what it is. So that's very troublesome to me. And look, on this show, we go deep on policy and politics, and we just uncover troublesome stuff because government has lots of troublesome stuff. What we're hearing is really good accountability and action by government, but I don't want us to lose sight of that the state of Texas was paralyzed in some form or fashion for some extended period of time while we all our law enforcement, who are really the guys out there and the ladies on the front lines sweating it out day and day, are watching these bad actors take refuge 40 yards away or 40 feet away on islands in the river, mocking them because somebody in the state of Texas didn't have the gumption to get it up and get it done and say, here's what it is. Fair?
Fair. Jesus doesn't call us to be timid, so I just go boldly on, put on the armor of God, and defend the Texas I know and love, whatever it takes within my rails.
Boom. That's strong. All right. And immediately when this came to light and you took office, you addressed it, mapped it twice. That's ours. Cleaned it up. And now, who cleaned it up? Because does DPS have that capacity? IUDs?
It was a coordinated effort between the Texas Military Department, Department of Public Safety, and Border Patrol. So it was a big coordinated effort with all the brilliance and all those entities working together, which is what we want to see, everybody working together for complete operational control of our border.
Wow. Really humbling moment. And we were having a light jovial. I'm proud of you. I appreciate it. Thank you for doing what you did. A whole bunch of lives were changed. A whole bunch of women and children and drugs were taken and arms were taken. Man, I'm disappointed it hadn't been done already. All right, let's move on. And how about the Alamo? Give us the Alamo.
Gosh.
Come on.
I'm so excited. Okay, so we're Texas, right? And when we travel, we say we're Texans. We don't say we're Americans. And my family, we're a big outdoors family, so it takes us to not the cities. I'll just put it that way. So we're out fishing or rafting or something. And it doesn't matter where in the world I've been. Africa, South America, doesn't matter. They answer back when you say you're from Texas is always remember the Alamo. Because for the whole world knows about the Alamo. The shrine of Texas liberty, the place where everyone laid their sacrifice and made the ultimate sacrifice for their belief, their families, and their fledgling nation. And so we proudly would bring people to the Alamo, and let's talk about that experience for a minute. You stood on a busy corner. You had to hold your children tight so they didn't get run over by all the cars whizzing by. You had the lovely wax museum to your right, and your guests would look at the Alamo, and honestly, they weren't impressed. They were like, is that it? Why did they move it downtown? Somebody asked me, because of course the city allowed development within the fort, within the lines of the fort, which of course the Alamo is the fort. What we all call the Alamo now is the church in the fort. So I'll kind of use Alamo and Church interchangeably every once in a while. And you cross that busy street, and the average visit was 7 minutes. And then people went on to do something else. So let's talk about what we're doing now. We have closed that busy street. So now it's pedestrian traffic only, unless it's during Fiesta. I've learned you can't close that street during Fiesta, so fine, we got that covered.
We take Fiesta. I grew up in San Antonio. We take Fiesta pretty seriously, so okay.
Very seriously. So, so what we're really going for is a somber place of remembrance. And so now you've got Alamo Plaza, you've got lovely pedestrian walkway. You're not hearing all that traffic like you were. You're not worried about the kids getting run over. We opened up the collection center for the Phil Collins collection about 2 years ago. So that's been up and running, and we've got thousands of artifacts on display there. It's lovely. We're about to open our children's education center. So for the first time ever, we're going to have dedicated curriculum, early childhood, all the way to high school. We have a place where they can eat their lunches. We have a place where they can get into a STEM lab and get their hands all dirty and learn about all kinds of things related to the Alamo. So that's coming online soon. Of course, the cenotaph is, when I say gleaming, it is gleaming. It is shining. The restoration in place is completed. The structural defects that were going to honestly make it fall down have all been fixed, and it is, all the soot and dirt and grime from the city is off of it. It is gloriously gleams in the sun. It's so exciting. And then where it was, the 3 buildings that held the Wax Museum are now going to be the 160,000 square foot museum.
Oh, wow.
So that museum, yes, and of course it's battle-centric. We are very clear on the fact that is why people come to the Alamo. But to understand the battle, you need to understand the context of time. So we do talk about the region, Native Americans, Mission era, all the way through the battle to how the Alamo continues to affect pop culture today. But in the center of that museum is a 4D theater. So you're going to stand in the theater and be surrounded by the walls of the fort. And you're going to understand the battle and experience it through sight and sound and smell. And you're going to feel the cannonballs hit and shake. And you're going to be able to immerse in the story of the battle unlike any other time. It's going to be fabulous. And then what's really going to get everybody's attention, and this was the hardest thing, is that the Alamo itself has structural integrity issues. The limestone walls have been wicking salt water up out of the ground for obviously a very long time. The building is 300 years old, and it's caused some structural integrity issues. It also has a roof that has exceeded its useful lifespan and is causing active damage to the building. So the roof needs to come off. Some of the walls need to be rebuilt, and then we're going to put a new roof on. To accomplish that, we have to put a temporary protective structure over the Alamo. It's going to look a little bit like a barn. I'm just going to be honest. Because imagine if we had that roof off and we had a massive hailstorm or a massive rain dump, cause irreparable damage. So it's going to really raise my name ID this summer when that temporary protective structure goes over the Alamo. I need everyone to like live in the truth that it is temporary. It's not going to be there forever. But we're going to do whatever it takes to get the Alamo to be able to stand, because I want, in 500 years, I want our children's children to be learning our loud and proud history. And my mission at the Alamo truly, besides a reverent place of remembrance, but it's so that you can immerse in the story, and it's so that everybody who's in that story knows that there was someone like them who had that bravery, and then therefore they need to stand up and be better in their own lives. So, for example, every commissioner gets to do a map. My map is the ethnic origin of the defenders, because early in my tenure, we were at a remembrance event, and the local superintendent got up and said, well, my people won at the Alamo but lost at San Jacinto, implying if you're of Latin descent or minority in general, you were not represented amongst the defenders, which is not the case. We had African-American defenders, obviously Northern Europeans, a ton of Latinos. I mean, it was, basically every ethnic origin represented there. And I want every child to know that story, the story of the Alamo, is their story. And so when you come from a heritage like that, when you've seen how people have stood and sacrificed for their beliefs, then that makes you a little braver to stand for your beliefs. And that's what I want everybody to get out of the Alamo, is that sacrifice was not in vain. It was to carry forward so that we may all be as brave.
That's powerful. That's strong. So I look at the folks, I think about the folks at the Alamo, much like I do the signers of the Declaration of Independence. They were willing to sacrifice it all for the hope that later generations would have independence and freedom. And at the Alamo, they did sacrifice it all. And ultimately, that objective was still achieved. And the signers of the Declaration got lucky. Frankly, we were real lucky that our nation made. And now we have the best example of democracy in ever in recorded history. 250 years of it. The notion, the symbol of America and the idea has launched dozens and dozens of democracies since. And Texas as a republic and standing up for itself and taking very similarly. And it started at the Alamo. It may have ended at San Jacinto, but it sure started at the Alamo. Okay, there's a couple things I heard you say that I want to understand a little better. Number one, I heard you say the impact of the Alamo that still affects pop culture. And it wasn't lost on me that much of the collection of the name is Phil Collins. That, of course, is the musician Phil Collins, the drummer. And I understand he had perhaps the greatest collection of artifacts from the Alamo. Is that the situation?
It is. He had a special connection. I haven't gotten to meet him directly, but my understanding is he stepped on the grounds of the Alamo and he felt like he was a reincarnated Alamo defender. And that special, strong attachment made him amass probably the largest collection. And then as he aged, and it takes a lot to take care of a collection like that. You don't just, stick it in your garage. And so he said, I want it to be taken care of. He said, I will bequeath it to you, but you're going to have to build a place to display it. Because, of course, when just the church was the only thing to really visit, you couldn't put a lot on display at the church for a lot of reasons. So thousands of his artifacts are now in the Ralston Collection Center, and they'll be moved to the museum once the museum is in place. The museum, the idea, the big visitor center, we call it the 160,000 square feet, that will be a fairly static series of displays. But the collection center will then have rotating displays. So when every time you come to the Alamo, it can be a different experience and there's something else to see. And through pop culture, is how Phil Collins fell in love with the Alamo, because he was watching Davy Crockett. He was watching John Wayne growing up. Same thing as Dan Patrick. When you look at the record funding from the state, Dan loves the Alamo and has really championed, the $550 million project that we just thank the legislature for giving us that money. We want to be very good stewards of every penny, and it's just been an amazing experience to be a part of it.
And I hadn't even thought about it until you said it. I grew up primarily in San Antonio. I've been to the Alamo many, many times, and it was in and out basically. And you'd walk out, I'd see the Fuddruckers right there. I'd see the Wax Museum. It did discount it, and I haven't been back. I was very near to it recently, but I can't say that I laid eyes on the Alamo in probably the last 2 years. So I'm excited to go and have a look. And yes, it'll be tinted, but we understand the roof needs to come off. It's going to be temporarily tinted. Now, you also used a word that I generally know, but I'm not sure of the definition. So cenotaph. Cenotaph.
Yeah, the cenotaph is that large kind of sculpture that's between or out in front of the Alamo. And it's kind of the symbolic gravestone of all the defenders. And so there was a lot of a controversy a few years ago about moving the cenotaph. I happened to be the one that threw down the legal challenge that kept it in place and then passed legislation in the Senate to protect it even further. But it's my strong opinion that it should stand right where it is. It's in a perfect spot. So we were able to do that restoration in place. We actually found the original quarry. The marble came from Georgia. We found the original quarry for that. We've also found the original quarry for the Alamo. It's been a bit of a detective work. It turned out it's the gorilla enclosure at the San Antonio Zoo. We had looked at
which is an incredible zoo, by the way. The San Antonio Zoo is exceptional, folks. But I'm sorry. Tell us.
Yeah, so it was just one of those things. We had looked at all the quarries because obviously they can only haul that stone so far. So it kind of made sense. It had to be in a certain radius. And we had looked and we had found close to the stone, but not the exact match. And then the zoo was expanding its gorilla habitat exhibit. And we said, hey, let us test that. That used to be a quarry. It's something we haven't tested. And sure enough, that's exactly where the stone came. So if and when, because I anticipate, yes, we're going to need some, quote, new stone, but it's going to come from the same exact quarry. And then the temporary protective structure is then going to go to the San Antonio Zoo and provide them a big shaded structure that'll be really useful and improve the experience there. So it's kind of a win-win. We have all the stone we need for any reconstruction at the Alamo, although I don't think we'll need very much, but it's nice to know that it's there just in case. And so it's just kind of neat how everything links together, and it's better when everybody works together.
That's really beautiful. I'm excited to go. I'm excited to go before this happens and then come back after. So, folks, if you're just joining us, this is Anthony Holm, host of Politics with the Big Dogs. We have Land Commissioner Dawn Buckingham with us. We have gone through defense of the border, reclaiming islands where drug traffickers were safe harboring. We have talked about the Alamo. We've talked about veterans programs that I didn't know existed, financing of homes, the final resting place where if we can't locate family, hundreds of veterans tend to show up. They put out the call. And then something that really moved me was the Valentine's Day cards being sent to veterans in one of 10 different nursing homes that is run by the state and run by your agency. Wow. Okay. Looking ahead. How long you been in the job? Year and a half? What are we talking?
We were running for re-election, so we need everyone's vote for sure.
Okay. 3 years. And last time, again, this just blew my mind. Texas we have won every statewide office for, 20-ish years, as I recall. It was, I think, 2002, maybe 98 was the last time a D won. And we have tremendous fundraising. And, of course, we're about a 10-point majority Republican state and a huge economy, the 8th largest economy in the world, where we are our own country back when your agency came to exist as a republic, an offshoot of the republic, yet you were outspent 5-1. Folks, we have got to pay attention to this. And if a D or somebody else with a bad actor ever took operational control of that office, they could shut down so much. They could help close down access to lands, stop oil and gas, stop rare earth. We'd have the spotted owl with the one feather in the back that could just shut down all home construction. So we've got to pay attention to this. Looking ahead, tell us.
Well, we're just going to serve the people we're supposed to serve and do it well. I feel like we've hit our stride in this office. When we came into office, there was a lot of controversy around this office. There was a lot of issues with the Harvey recovery, the Hurricane Harvey recovery. For those of you not hit by that, of the 39 counties that it affected, there was a lot of controversy and issues around the Alamo. And so we just charged hard into all of those fights. That's what we do. And we just spoke our truth, and we fixed what we were messing up, and we shined the light on what everybody else was messing up, and we got it fixed, and we got it done, and we have it pretty settled and in a really good spot. And so that's what we're just going to continue to do. We're looking ahead at ways to be transformational for what Texas needs into the future, because you want your elected officials to look out 50 and 100 years and see what little changes now, what's coming down the road, instead of having everything be so reactionary. So that's what we're doing within the purview of our office, and it's a lot of fun.
I like it. Going on offense, not waiting for defense. I like it. We're proud of you. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Commissioner, and I'm sure you're going to do excellent in this next election cycle, but we'll all pay attention. We'll stay in there. We'll stay down ballot. And where can they learn more about you?
Well, dawnbuckingham.com is my campaign website, and it has all of our social media on it. And we appreciate all the likes and retweets and all that good stuff. We just want to get our name out there and let people know this is an office they need to care about, and please vote Buckingham.
Thank you, ma'am. You have a good day. God bless you.
God bless.
Love what you're hearing? Find all of our shows at politicswiththebigdogs.com. Subscribe to our newsletter and send in your questions. politicswiththebigdogs.com.
All right, folks, that was incredible. I learned so much. I hope you guys did as well. Maybe you knew that stuff, but I didn't. Holy smokes, there were these islands that drug traffickers and terrorists and human smugglers, islands in the middle of the Rio Grande, they were seeking refuge and getting refuge, not just seeking. Law enforcement from neither country would go in. They were unclear who owned it. I'm really troubled, very deeply troubled, that we learned today that law enforcement had this ask in to the land commissioner's office for years before Dawn Buckingham took over. Let's just call it what it is. The last occupant of that office was George P. Bush, part of the Bush dynasty, Jeb's son. He ran for Attorney General, went into the runoff 4 years ago with Ken Paxton, and was soundly defeated. They're not known as an institution of conservatism, but I am struck that he, and perhaps even the land commissioner prior, I don't know how long this ask has been out there, that people didn't have the gumption, the courage to say, map it, claim it, fix it, recover those bombs, recover those drugs, close these safe harbors, and get those women and children who are being trafficked out of there. That gives me deep pause, and I'm sure you join me. So God bless the folks that are out there fighting the fight on the front lines and taking care of lives and keeping us safe. Other things, as you guys heard, I was half in tears on the final arrest with hundreds of folks for the veterans who didn't have family or couldn't find them. They put out the word from the Land Commission, and sometimes hundreds of veterans who didn't know the deceased show up to honor them. I suspect they're showing up in, the POW caps and the Army caps and the veteran caps. What a beautiful sight! And at some point, if I can, I will capture some of those visuals and try to honor those people who are showing up, and we'll incorporate them into the show, and we'll incorporate them into our lives and see what we can do. Also, this Valentine's Day that's coming up, and they have 10 veterans nursing homes in Texas and organizing Valentine's Day cards. It's so beautiful. My children will definitely do it. I encourage you guys to engage, and of course, as I offered up our little Episcopal school in Wimberley, Texas, St. Stephen's, I suspect they'll jump right in. So let's see what we can do for Texas's veterans and honor and support those who most deserve it. And folks, what I found was if we go to GLO, so General Land Office.texas.gov/veterans, you'll find the Veterans Valentine's, Valentine's for Vets program, and the unaccompanied service program. So I would encourage us all to go there. If you're associated with a school, particularly an elementary school, GLO, like General Land Office.texas.gov/veterans has a list of what the Texas Land Commission is doing for our veterans here in Texas. I would encourage us all to engage. The other thing that I was really struck by was we have one of the largest rare earth and minerals deposits, and it's controlled and operated by the GLO, by the Land Commissioner, Dawn Buckingham. This is the great fight, right? This is the Cold War that we are likely having and going to have for the next 15 or more years, potentially, with China. We're not having it with Russia this time. I grew up in the era of Cold War, but we're having it with China over rare earth and access to oil. The Chinese are trying to force their form of government and their values, which are directly opposed to many of our values, onto the world. And one of the ways they're doing is holding back some of the key components that make refrigerators and cell phones and cars. They're like, hey, we control 80-90% of the rare earths, and we're going to leverage it. And the last thing that really struck me was the Alamo. I grew up, as I've shared with y'all, primarily in San Antonio most of my life, most of my youth, rather, and I was struck by how limited the offerings of the Alamo were. So I'm real eager to go and see it on the backside, and I'm real eager and optimistic that they're going to do a great job and good things for Texas and America, frankly. So Dawn Buckingham, you know about her, you heard about the GLO. Let's do what we can support the conservative values and conservative people in the state of Texas. Now, we opened with, and we don't have a lot of time, but we opened with, we're going to talk about the Senate race, and not the politics of it, but the policy of it. I'm just so struck. So we've all just been inundated, right? Cornyn and his team have spent over $70 million. It looks like it's going to be about $100 million before the March primary, and some of the data coming out is all the campaigns are issuing data and conflicting data. So Cornyn's team says, hey, after $70 million spent, we're at 31, Paxton's at 29, Hunt's at 24, and 16% undecided. Okay. Paxton's come out and says, yeah, Cornyn spent $70 million. I've spent $700,000. The race is at 34 Paxton, 26 Cornyn, 18 Hunt with 22 undecided. And the best I can tell, Hunt and his, big old PACs have spent about $7 million, primarily promoting himself and some portion of it, from my anecdotal observations, tearing down Cornyn. But the policy of this effort is different. And here's what I mean by that. Okay, $70 million has already been spent. That's just a shocking number. And they're going to go ahead and drive it to $100 million. When I say they, it's primarily the Washington establishment. So as I recall, Senator Cornyn got elected to Senate in 2002. I think that's right. So he's been in office 4 terms, or 24 years. And you'll remember that Attorney General Paxton was on the show, and we've also talked about it as well, the funding policies. Like, federal offices are limited to, I don't even know the number, bigger checks than I write to candidates, $3,500, for example. Let's say that. But it was somewhere in there, like a couple $7,000. But all these affiliated federal committees, and that's not PACs, affiliated federal committees, like the NRSC, the Senatorial Committee, the RNC, and they're all putting together these committees where people are putting millions of dollars in them, truly millions of dollars in donations going into them, to spend $70 million to try to allow Cornyn, Senator Cornyn, to go from having 24 years in the U.S. Senate to 30, because it's a 6-year term, right? So, okay, it's legal, but my question is a little bit different. If we have all railed against the Austin swamp, but also the Washington swamp, right? Like, good people go to Washington and they just get chewed up by the system. I think the same thing happens in Austin. We talked about it a lot. They lose their way. So I've got to ask all of us, hey, if Washington, D.C. is spending $70 million, or has spent $70 million and likely to spend $100 million, if Cornyn gets elected, for whom will he work, right? Like, you're there almost certainly his last term. It'll then be 30 years in the U.S. Senate. I want to know who he's going to be responsive to, because if it's the voters of Texas, I would be surprised. And here's why. Not because he's a bad person. I know him, but I don't know him well enough on this. It's just when somebody goes and funds $100 million of a candidate's effort, and almost certainly he would have lost but for this, and may lose even with it. If he loses, it'll be the most shocking defeat in modern history. No way around it. If the swamp is showing up and pumping in $100 million for you, for whom are you really serving the next 6 years? It gives me great pause. Not all of that $100 million is from Washington, D.C. and outside entities. There's plenty of Texans supporting Senator Cornyn, but you guys get what I'm saying. When all of these committees and lobbyists and folks who have lived 25 years in Washington, D.C. organize a $100 million effort to maybe keep you in office, if you're reelected, whose calls are you responding to? Certainly whose calls are you responding to first? The 31 million Texans or the 300 people who organize $100 million to keep you in office? That's not politics. That's a policy problem, or certainly a potential problem with policy. So I leave us with that. Thank you so much for your time. We'll get into these substantive issues again. Thank you for fighting for conservative values, for being a champion for liberty. Sign up, politicswithbigdogs.com. Join our newsletter. God bless you, and God bless Texas.
Politics with the Big Dogs with Anthony Holm is supported in part by the First Amendment Alliance Education Fund. Learn more about today's guest and hear other episodes online in our archive. Visit politicswiththebigdogs.com. If you have a question for Anthony Holm, email Anthony at politicswiththebigdogs.com. From deep in the heart of Texas, you've been listening to Politics with the Big Dogs.